Our demonstration is going to be basically on a shower that's going to be a curbless shower, not a barrier-free shower. That would mean there's no barriers for anybody of any ability or disability to use. There's no barriers at all. This is simply a shower that doesn't have a curb. Not to say that the components that we have here cannot be used to create a barrier-free shower. That's a whole other presentation, and that's a lot more involved. That actually takes us a half a day to do that thing, and we do have a seminar on that if you'd like to look on Schluter.com, go to Education Events, and sign up to go see one of those on barrier-free. We do have that. That's also available as AIA accredited CEU, continuation education units, so you can do that too. What we're going to do today is a curbless shower, so that's what we're going to talk about. But as you saw from the marquee, we're also going to tell you about what's new. So we have a couple of new things we want to show you before we jump into the demonstration. So the newest thing out there, of course, that we have would be our Wi-Fi thermostat. You know about our DITRA heat in-floor heating system. We've had thermostats for those for a while, of course, as long as we've had the system, but now we have the Wi-Fi thermostat. So if you want to control that from a smart house, or you want to control that from your smartphone, turn your floor on and off from there, you can do that because now we have the ability to do Wi-Fi. The other thing that's a little more tangible or something you can take a look at a little bit better is our new grate designs. So I'm going to show you those in our point drain, our Curdy drain first. We have 3 new styles that have come out right now that are available. There's one called Pure, which is this design here. There's one called Curves, which is this design. And then this one's called Floral. A couple things about these drains. Very heavy duty brushed stainless steel. They're held in with their own weight, so there's no need for any access screws to put them in or out. And also, the frame around them is so very small, it's almost invisible once you put the drain grate in. It's very hard to see the frame. So keep those in mind. 3 new styles, not only in the point drain, the Curdy drain, but also, here Wyatt, maybe you can grab one of those and hold it like Carol Merrill. I don't know how many people here know Carol Merrill is. Okay, Mary, we're close. Well, you're a youngster, but you still remember that, so that's good. I think a couple of other people aren't admitting that they know who Carol Merrill is. Pat's finally going, all right, I know who that is. Okay, so same designs again, but here in the line drain. So I've got the Curve here in the hand, and then the Pure, and Wyatt there is holding the Floral. Go ahead and pop that out of there, and you can see again, very, very small frame around the edge, which is almost invisible. That's what you would tile and grout up against, of course. And then when you put the grate in there, you can barely see a frame. And again, they're held in their own weight. Now, the line drain in the new style come from any length from 20 inches up to 48 inches in about 4-inch increments. It's a metric measurement, but it's roughly 4 inches from 20 to 48. So keep that in mind. So that's also new out on the market. I would ask you to come by our booth, which is 7919, just right over here past the MAPE and the MD people over there. We've got a booth and we've got some new profiles we'd like to take a look at. We're kind of known for our profiles, so that would be something that you could take a look at, and some new finishes in those profiles too that really complement natural stones, and also some of the porcelains, through-body porcelains that do look like natural stones. So a lot of new stuff on the market from Schluter. We have more stuff that's coming out before the end of 2018, but I'm sworn to secrecy, so I can't tell you about those things. I would love to. I'm aching to tell you about new products throughout the rest of the year, but I can't say anything about those, but stay tuned. We do have some exciting stuff coming out in this very year before the end of the year. Oh, and there's the guy that's going to hold me to it to make certain I don't talk about those. Oh, but one thing I can talk about, and you said, Luciano, that I could talk about this, and we're going to show that here today, is trays. You told me I could talk about this, right? I could say that they're now covered with Curdy. We've got various sizes, new sizes. This one's one of the thinner ones, which we're going to show up here, part of our curbless here, where we'll talk about that in a minute. And they're coming out summer of this year. Am I good? I can't see anything else, can I? Oh, darn it. All right. If he wasn't here, I'd let, but He's sitting right in the back row. That's not that I'm intimidated by Luciano at all. Anyway, okay, so demo, guys. What do we got going here? We're going to show some different things. We're going to put a niche in here. How many of you are familiar with Curdy board? Curdy board's been about 8 years now in the U.S. market, a little bit longer over in Europe. But we have Curdy board in various thicknesses to do various things with. We're going to use a few different sizes or thicknesses here. We do make prefabricated niches. This is a 12 by 20. We're going to put this in the back wall. The flange on this is made to fit between 16-inch on center framing. So that's why it's this size, so it'll fit in there. And you can see that Aaron's going to be doing all the hard work over here. I'm just going to be standing here and talking. What's that? Well, Wyatt's going to kind of assist. Is he going to really do any hard work, or you're going to do what? Oh, okay. Well, you have an integral role here. It's just not very hard work. I'm not doing any hard work, so you're doing better than me. Anyway, so we're putting that in place. There's no blocking required top and bottom as long as you're just cutting between two 16-inch on center studs, okay? No blocking across top and bottom. They fit right in. You can see Aaron's using, we have fasteners, but you can use anybody's fastener, galvanizer, zinc, but we do have a washer that we do require. Some benefits of using our washer. One, you can eliminate 50% of the fasteners you typically use to put a panel to a wall. Instead of every 6 inches on center, every 12 inches on center when you use our washer. Also, you can see one fastener goes in the middle of a seam of two panels or two boards. One fastener, one washer. Instead of trying to put two screws into two panels that are adjoining on the same stud, we don't need to fuss with that. One fastener, one washer right in the middle, and that'll hold it in place. So Aaron's already put that in. He's put the 4 washers and fasteners in. That's ready to go. They're working so fast, I'm going to have to try to keep up with both of them. I know they did this to gang up on me. I usually have to just do play-by-play on one, but now we've got 2. So what Wyatt's doing over here, since this is a shower, this is a wet area, we've actually got penetrations through our Curdy board. So those are going to have to be treated. So Wyatt is putting a little patch of our Curdy band over the top of all those penetrations to waterproof those back up. Meanwhile, what Aaron's doing over here is, the nice thing about Curdy is it can go over drywall. It doesn't even have to be water rock as far as we're concerned. It can be regular old drywall. It can be water resistant rock. It can be backer board. It could be brick. It could be block. It could be concrete. You could basically put Curdy over the top of any of those substrates and protect them from ever getting water. And now you're ready to tile directly on the Curdy. So what we're doing over here is doing just that on some drywall. So now we're going drywall on here with Curdy. The back wall has been done with our 1/2 inch thick Curdy board because these are 16-inch on center framing here. We have various thicknesses if your framing's wider and what you want to do with it, but nonetheless we're putting that on there. People will ask, well, when would I use Curdy board and when would I use Curdy? And my response is typically, if you already have a panel on a wall, then you would just go ahead and put Curdy on it and make it waterproof. But if you don't have a panel, if you simply have bare studs to begin with, you could put a panel up and then put the Curdy on the panel, but why not just go ahead and use Curdy board in that instance, and then you're waterproof once you put the panel up, one step, and you're done. Another nice thing about putting that on there is you've probably seen a demo that was done here yesterday where you can put a channel of thin set on each stud and then lay the Curdy board up into the thin set and use a level and push the board into the thin set. And why are you doing this? Because the stud's not straight. And you want a straight wall when you go to tile. Remember back in the day when we floated mortar on all surfaces before tiling? The tile installer was in control of the substrate because they actually created it. When we went to direct bond method, thin set method of tile installation, what did we do? We gave that to another trade to supply us with the substrate that we were going to tile on, whether it was a floor or a wall. That doesn't work for us so well. How many times do you find yourself putting a 12 by 24 running bond on a shower wall and you have to pull every tile on and off a few times to get the lippage out because the wall's not even? We've all been there. Nice thing about doing floating is you were in control of that wall. You gave yourself a perfectly flat, plumb, smooth surface. by putting the channel of thin set on the studs and laying the board up into that, and then putting the fasteners on once the thin set gains enough body that you don't squish the work you just did, you can get a wall pretty true. So it's going to be much easier when it comes to tiling to do it quickly. So that's what's going on here, why it's doing that. Also, we want to tape the seam. We have a seam between the two panels here where they're joining on one stud. That's in a wet area, so we're going to use Curdy band on that. Curdy band is actually the same stuff as Curdy, which is what Aaron's using at the end, except it's half the mil thickness. It's only 4 mils thick, where Curdy is 8 mils thick. Remember, mil is not abbreviation for millimeter. Mil is 1/1000th of an inch. So it's very, very thin material, which makes it easy to apply and easy to tile over without having a speed bump, if you will. So that's what Wyatt is doing, is he's putting the Curdy over there. Now, if you look at the thin set that these guys are using, it's fairly loose in consistency. It's not as thick or as stiff as you would use to set tile. We need it looser because we want it to flow underneath the Curdy through the blade being laid over. All we're doing is firmly embedding the Curdy into the bond coat, knocking down the ridges, and evacuating any blisters or air bubbles from underneath the Curdy. It's very simple to do. You don't have to use a lot of muscle. You can use the trailing edge of your trowel and just smooth it out, and that'll happen readily. So that's why the thin set is fairly loose. Now, also what Aaron did, he made a call when it came to that vertical inside corner. We need to tie the Curdy that's on the drywall into the Curdy board as far as waterproofing. You have an option. You could take a piece of Curdy band, fold it lengthwise, and use it in that back inside corner, or you can do what Aaron did, is he burned 2 inches of his Curdy material and tucked it into the corner and used that 2 inches to go onto the Curdy board. There he did. He already treated that inside corner, so he eliminated a product and a step when it comes to waterproofing. So keep that in mind, that you can simply do that. And remember, we always require a minimum 2-inch overlap. So he just did that by moving that product over into the corner and going onto the Curdy board. We had a little balance over here, so you can see Aaron did the same thing. He spread his thin set on the wall, did a 2-inch overlap onto the piece he had already put on, and now he's all watertight and ready to go. So that's what's going on in there. Now, a thing about a big panel, Curdy's 1 meter wide when it comes off the roll. And if you're going up to the shower head or even higher, that's a lot of area to spread thin set on before you're going to lay Curdy up on there. And if you don't trowel real quick, it could start drying up or getting a skin on it where you started. So here's a little tip. Get the thin set out of the bucket and get it onto the wall strategically placed in little piles or plops. Those are technical terms. You can remember those. Get it out of the bucket and on the wall. Then use the flat side of your trowel to burn it into the substrate. That's tile 101, right? Everybody understand you're supposed to burn the thin set in with the flat side? That's why there's a flat side to a trowel. Burn it in, get it all spread out, and then the last thing you do, spin your trowel around to the notch side and then gauge how much you're going to leave on. It'll all be nice and fresh. Then when you grab your Curdy that's pre-cut, you lay it up onto the wall. It's going to be nice and smooth, in fresh thin set, and you won't have to worry ever about getting a dry spot and not getting a good bond. Can you pull down a corner of some of that so we can take a look? I don't know what camera would be best to take in there and see the kind of coverage. Do you think he got pretty good coverage in there? I think we'll give him an A for that. You know, we want good coverage underneath there. It's nice and spread out. Thanks, Aaron. You can redo your work whenever you want to. Okay, so this piece must be for a floor, maybe? Or is that just a prop? All right, a couple of other things. By the way, if you're not familiar with them, we do make other things out of Curdy board. You know that we make our benches out of foam in various sizes and shapes. We also make them out of our Curdy board. So this one's ready to go in place in an inside corner. You can see that, a nice little corner bench that can be applied there. Very quick to introduce a bench in there. Won't warp, won't rot, totally stable. And now we just simply need to install it in thin set or our Curdy Fix, which is a urethane-based caulking, and then tie it together with our Curdy band, and we're ready to tile it. Has a little bit of a slope to the top, so the water will sheet off, of course. So that's what you're looking at there. That just happens to be one of the sizes and shapes that we have. Also, you may be familiar with our foam curbs. We make the curbs that are made out of the same kind of material as our trays, but now we also make, if you're not familiar with this, they've been out for a little while now, we make curbs out of our Curdy board. So the benefit of that is no need to wrap them with Curdy. They're ready to go as they are. Set them in place in thin set, tie the Curdy band into them to watertight, and you're away to the races. They do have some blocking in there, and they're really not for support. The thing is plenty strong without them, but we put them in there to remind people that you don't have to slide this over wood framing or blocking or something like that. They can just go in as they are. You can cut them to length if you want, cut them to height, no problem at all. So keep that in mind that we have those made out of Curdy board also. By the way, in that niche, since that was a larger rectangular niche, you are going to get a shelf that can be put in adjustable wherever you want to put it, and of course you put that in thin set when you're tiling. Do it to your layout or wherever you want to put it or where the homeowner would prefer it. That does slide right in there, and you just butter that up with thin set and slide it in and put it in place. So that would be ready to go there too. All right. I did mention that Curdy board comes in various thicknesses depending on what you're going to do with it. You can make a tub deck out of it for a whirlpool tub. You can make a bench out of it if you want to make your own custom bench. This is something we're going to do here. You can make pony walls out of it. There's all sorts of things, building elements that you can do. All kinds of design elements can be created with Curdy board, and the benefit is it's very quick to work with, it's lightweight, it won't warp, it won't rot, and it's dimensionally stable. All right, so keep that in mind. So here what we're going to do is we're going to build a little custom bench, and Aaron is using a combination of his thin set and some of our Curdy fix to put this together. So there's our blocking. This is our 2-inch thick Curdy board. You can see that he's already cut this to fit. For the blocking, you're going to sit upright, face on there, deck on the top, and that's going to be all our bench is made out of. So he's going to get those. Put 4 of those in across this 48-inch area. This is going to be the face. This is our 1/2-inch board, just like we're using on the walls. At that block spacing, that's going to be plenty stiff, plenty thick enough to do the face. And then the top, we're back to our 2-inch board here. That's been up pre-cut, ready to be the bench top. People worry about the kind of weight that this thing can take. We're not concerned about that. The way we've got that blocked, and with these thicknesses of boards, as many rear ends as you could sit on that thing at one time, it can be able to hold them. We have no problem with that at all. So don't be concerned about that. So just keep that in mind. What you're going to put the top on first? Okay. Now one nice thing about this, remember I said we need a 2-inch overlap of our Curdy? We are going to Curdy band this front edge here. The foam is waterproof. Now I just read this on a very popular social media tile site the other day that someone claimed that they heard from Schluter that the foam core is not waterproof. And that is not true. The foam core is a waterproof element. They're all waterproof. What had happened is the board had been submerged in water, and it showed some wicking of some water up out of the water that was in the flood test. What you were actually seeing there is the fleece doing its job. We put spun polypropylene fleece on both sides of Curdy board because that's what you're going to bond the tile to. You're going to need the thin set to grab a hold of something. That is the fleece. So what was happening was the water was impregnating the fleece, just as the design entails. So no, this is totally waterproof board. That's not a problem at all. But since we want to be consistent at Schluter Systems and have one consistent message, we're saying we're going to make the whole thing a continuous waterproof envelope before tiling. We want it all orange before you start tiling on it. So even though I'm standing here holding whatever piece you needed, right? He's very patient with me. He just sits here and says, go ahead, Andy, just talk, and you just hold the piece I'm needing to use. So he puts that on there. So notice a little thing that we've done. This piece terminates at the same plane as the front pieces of blocking, which means the face piece is going to come clear up to the top of our bench. This is only 1/2-inch wide. That's 2 inches wide. We would have to use a 6-inch wide piece of Curdy to have a 2-inch overlap onto this Curdy and this Curdy, didn't we? But now that we've got this piece here on the, you need this? Yeah. Okay. You can see he's going to apply that as the face. Now we only have a 1/2-inch to cover. So the 5-inch band, we do have a 7.5 and a 10-inch wide band, but everybody's buying the 5-inch band. They're keeping it in stock, comes in big rolls. So now you can still use the 5-inch band to tie this seam together. Now, What Aaron's doing up there is he's going to waterproof that inside corner. You can see in there, we do make a one-piece inside corner and an outside corner out of our Kerdi material, which is really a nice convenience item, inside and outside. So he's going to put one of those right there in that inside corner. You can see that back in there. We make the tail on each side of this longer than 2 inches. And remember, we only require a 2-inch overlap. The benefit of that is when we bring the Kerdi band in on these two sides, they don't have to overlap themselves back in this inside corner. They can simply terminate out here as soon as they hit 2 inches over the top of this, which means we don't end up with 3 layers back in here, because that's going to build up. And a lot of time what you're going to put on these things, if it's on a shower pan, is a small mosaic. So he's put that piece in. What do you need? You need that one? Okay, so there's the boot. That boot is an outside corner. It can be used floor-to-wall connection on an outside corner. Where we're going to use it is here at the front of that bench face, where it comes up onto the bench deck, to get that all watertight also. So what Aaron did now is he took his Kerdi band, as I mentioned earlier, and to give it a little bit of a memory, he just folded it lengthwise like this, and just gave it a couple of strokes like that, and now it's got a bit of a memory, and now he's tucked it into the corner. This is 5 inches wide. We're asking for a 2-inch overlap, so you just did the math in your head, didn't you smart people? And you didn't realize you got 2.5 going up the wall and 2.5 out on the bench, right? So now we've more than covered our 2-inch overlap in there, and he's tightened that in. You'll also notice that that piece of Kerdi band is not shingle lapped with the piece of Kerdi that's on the wall. And many people will be concerned about that and go, doesn't this piece of Kerdi need to go over that one like shingles on a roof or siding on a home? No, it doesn't. Whichever way you lay that up, it's going to be watertight. We don't care as long as you get a 2-inch overlap. The benefit for you as an installer is it doesn't matter which sequence of events happen when you waterproof with this product. It's right whichever way you choose to do it. So there's a little bit of a leniency there, a little flexibility in that part of the design. That's going to be watertight whichever way it's going to happen. If you think about it, if we had to rely on shingle lap for our seam to be waterproof, we wouldn't have much of a waterproof system that we're offering you. So that isn't a requirement. So whatever way you want to do it is fine there. Same thing on the front edge here. Like I said, we want to have a continuous waterproof envelope throughout the entire thing before we get going. So while they're working away out there, I do want to show you some other things here. The tray I showed you a little bit earlier. This is one of our new trays in regards to two things. It has the Kerdi laminated onto the foam already, and it is a new, thinner size. We're using it in this demonstration for that very purpose. We're showing that we've recessed the floor in this shower area where the shower pan's going to be by 3/4 of an inch. So you can imagine if you had standard 3/4 inch subfloor, plywood or OSB, we're showing OSB here, and you took the subfloor out from on top of the studs and then cut it in strips and had it down recessed to be even with the top of your joists or flanges instead of sitting on top, you just gained that 3/4 of an inch. That 3/4 plus the thickness of our DITRA heat, or our DITRA XL for that matter, abutted to it is going to give you a flush access right off of your bathroom floor right into your shower. So you now have that curbless shower with no speed bump, no bump up and over, it's just going to go flush straight in from that floor. In this particular case, we just doubled up the 3/4 plywood outside that's going to be the floor area to sort of mimic the recessing of a floor in a real framed area. So that's what we've done here. You'll also notice on here, if you're familiar with our showers and our trays, we've always had this recess right here in the middle, and that's there to accommodate our drain. Our drain flange is at a certain thickness. When you add some thin set to here to seat this in, we wanted this flush with this top here. So you're still going to get that there. But now that we've got the Kerdi already on the tray, we still need to tie this waterproofing into this bonding flange, into the Kerdi drain. So included in the kit will be this extra piece of Kerdi. We've already nicknamed this the donut. You can imagine that, why we said that. Tile setters like donuts too. It's not just for law enforcement. So there you go. So now this piece, you'll see an extra recess right here. That's going to accommodate the thickness of some thin set to bond this, and the thickness of this Curdy donut itself to go in here. So now you're going to stay flush as you head towards the drain. Why would that be important to be flush here and not have an extra lump or speed bump here? Typically the size tile that's being put on these trays is a small mosaic, which means a small notch trowel, and you could see any little imperfection in the plane. So we put that extra indentation around there in order to make that happen. And we can thank Luciano here for actually coming up with that design. Wow. You really weren't responsible for that? Well, you see, don't be so modest. You were. It's fine. You, go ahead. Wave to the crowd. You're not liking me right now, are you? I'll get in trouble later. All right, so this tray's been cut down a little bit. It was even sizes. It hinges, of course, with some tape on the back for reinforcing, and of course, the Curdy on it already. And you can see how much Aaron has cut off right here. He just scored it with a knife, snapped the rest off. You can do that with all our trays, right? All of our trays have the ability, if you need to cut them down, you just measure from the hole out to your walls, from the center of the hole where your drain's going to be, out, score, snap off what you don't need. What if you put the tray in place and there's still some room to get to the wall? You need some extra. Well, a couple of options. You can use standard mortar, right? Dry pack mortar in there, or you could use Curdy board of the same thickness and put Curdy board in there as a filler. Of course, you want it to kick a little bit, so you'd spot mount the Curdy board in there and press it down with a straight edge to continue the slope with your filler piece. So two options, mortar bed or some Curdy board of like thickness in order to get yourself a filler. So that's what we've got going on here. I think Aaron's just about ready for that, so I better get it closer to where he wants it. I'm usually pretty good at getting stuff right. I'm a good helper. I get things just out of reach of the installer. You ever want to do that to your, when you were a helper, did you do that when you were having a bad day? And remember the installer was like rawhiding you all morning, so you just always put everything just out of reach so they couldn't quite get to it. Did anybody do that when they were a helper? I did, and then in turn, when I had helpers, they did it to me too. So I guess it's a payback time. Anyway, okay, so here's the recess area where the tray is going to go. So we've switched to a 1/4 by 3/8 notch trowel, 1/4 wide, 3/8 deep. It's a substantial amount of thin set, but then we need a substantial amount of thin set to put that big of a tray in place and make for certain it's fully bonded and fully supported in this recess. So he's using that trowel again. He burned it into the substrate with the flat side first and spread it all out. Then he just goes with the notch trowel to gauge how much he's put in place. And he's got it in place. There's your tray, sir. All right. Looks like you planned that before. That's pretty good. All right. This is not Aaron's first rodeo, I can tell. So he's now just pressing it down by walking on it a little bit. Notice we did all the work on the walls before we put the tray in. You could harm the tray, I guess, but really we want you to do that because we don't want you to get it dirty or scuffed up and put it in first and then do all the wall work. So we put that in place, and then what Aaron has done, so when he's going to work in here in a little while, he's got himself a little piece of scrap cardboard that he can place on this thing, and that's going to help protect the fleece a little bit too. So am I going to be in your way if I put that in now? Nope. Okay. All right. So what are you going to? You're going to do, okay. So they're going to switch over and put some of the DITRA down. How many of you are familiar with DITRA products? Any of the Schluter DITRA products? Besides you three guys and you two guys. You've been raising your hand to everything, and we appreciate that, by the way. That guy back there in the Red Sox shirt, too. Okay, thank you. DITRA's now enjoyed in its 30th year. You heard me right, 30th year in North America. Isn't that amazing? It's been around that long. Schluter Systems was responsible for reintroducing the principle or the concept of uncoupling. And when I say reintroducing it, it'd been around for a long time. Actually, all the old methods of tile installation, right up until we went to thin set method, included a mechanism for uncoupling incorporated right into the tile assembly. Well, when we went direct bond, we threw the baby out with the bathwater. We no longer had a mechanism for uncoupling built into there, so it was Schluter Systems and Werner Schluter that said, we really should look at the benefits of having an uncoupling system or mechanism built into a tile assembly. So what is that? That gives the tile the ability to be uncoupled or not be affected by dimensional change of the substrate below the tile, what it was typically being bonded directly to. That's a force conductive bond. We don't want a force conductive bond between two dissimilar materials like wood and tile or concrete and tile or anything like that. So we wanted to actually get that uncoupling layer in there, a forgiving shear plane layer, and that is what DITRA does. It does it because you're getting a mechanical fastening of DITRA or tile via the thin set to the DITRA. Each one of these squares you're looking at is cut back underneath like a dovetail. So when the thin set fills that up, takes that shape and gets hard, it grabs a hold of that cavity, that cut back cavity, but it's mechanical fastening only. And it supports the tile under load by the support capability of the thin set when it cures out. If you look on the back side, we put a spun polypropylene fleece on the back, which is highly absorbent and absorbs up the thin set that is placed in and rolled or pushed down in. That's what the guys did right up here with our DITRA heat. So that's the original. It actually isn't the original DITRA. We have a piece of the original DITRA that was manufactured over in the booth, and you can take a look at that. This is the one that came out in, what was this, Dale, 99 or 2000, I imagine? Somewhere right around there? Okay. I just love having 4 of the senior Schluter guys sitting in the back row watching all this. This has been really nice for me. Another product we have is called DITRA XL. This product is made for the ability to go over a single layer plywoods when your joists are wider than 16 inches on center. So keep that in mind, that we have the ability to do that with DITRA XL. It is a thicker product, certainly, but what we really want to key in on is the sidewalls are twice as tall, which means it can allow for more in-plane movement between dissimilar materials, even under some amount of deflection. So keep that in mind. Same fleece on the back. Another product that we have, and this is the one that's being used up here, is DITRA Heat. Of course, DITRA Heat looks different from DITRA, but it is an uncoupling membrane and it is waterproofing, but it has a different configuration because it gives us the ability to run our heating cable back and forth throughout the floor, so we can now incorporate in-floor heat in a cable system very quickly and easily right on the job site. Put the DITRA down, the DITRA heat mat like you have there. Take the cable, run the cable back and forth through the studs. We're saying every 3 studs gives you perfect wattage at that gap, at that spacing, and then you're ready to go ahead and tile over the top. So that's what DITRA Heat is all about. There's another generation of DITRA Heat called DITRA Heat Duo, and it looks very similar to DITRA Heat on the top, but if you look on the back side, it has a fleece that's thicker than the other type. We call it Duo because it has 2 purposes. One, it's going to give you a thermal break. The benefit of a thermal break here, if you're going to go over a concrete slab, you don't want that slab to sit there and draw all that heat away from your cable as it's trying to heat that floor up and get it warm. So the thermal break is going to actually allow that tile to get up to temperature 70% faster time than if we used regular DITRA or DITRA Heat on a concrete slab. So it's a thermal break. The other capability of this product is a sound attenuation mat. On a 6-inch concrete slab, this will give you a delta contribution of 20. If you know anything about impact insulation class and how much 20 is, delta contribution, not total, that you can get out of a panel that thin or a membrane that thin, that is an impressive number. So 20 with that, plus the capability of supporting the tile under load and giving you uncoupling and having the ability to run cable throughout it. So keep in mind what DITRA Heat Duo is all about. The last DITRA I want to show you is called DITRA Drain. Now this DITRA looks, again, differently than the other DITRA, but it is in the DITRA family of product. And this DITRA also has the printing on the back because it goes in this fashion. The fleece actually points up. In this one, all of those, the fleece went down into the thin set on the floor, right? This is made for exterior applications of tile and stone. The whole idea is that the stone or tile is bonded to this side, and you do have a gap in here for ventilation layer to help get things dry or to evacuate excess moisture out the bottom instead of back up through the top. Many of you understand the whole idea of efflorescence. And efflorescence is what? Moisture coming back through the top of the tile, namely through the grout lines, and bringing the binding salts, the calciums, the limes, with them to the surface. The water evaporates, leaving the calciums around. That's your efflorescence. We can't make the claim that this will completely eliminate it, but it will certainly greatly reduce the capability of any efflorescence coming to the surface, because the water has a course of least resistance down through the bottom and out, plus the ventilation layer to help dry things out. So exterior applications is what DITRA drain is for, so keep that in mind. All right, so there's all your DITRAs. They've rolled out through the last years and so forth. So when you think about your DITRA, think about what is it you want out of your floor? What kind of performances do you need that floor to give you? Uncoupling? Certainly. How about waterproofing? Like here, where we're doing a bathroom when we have OSB. This would certainly be considered a wet area, and now that we've removed the curb, there's the ability for the water to actually come outside what was traditionally the wet area to what was traditionally the dry area, right? So now this is going to protect the OSB from ever seeing any water, right? And we're also going to be able to put in-floor heat in here with the cable system. So think about the performance. What do you need out of your floor? What's the requirements? That's going to help you select the DITRA that you're going to use. So meanwhile, back at the ranch, what we got going on over here is it looks like, oh yeah. So as I showed you earlier, Aaron's about ready to put the Schluter drain in place, the integrated bonding flange. So he's already filled that last recess down there with some thin set that's going to support the drain and bond it in. You'll see that the thin set's going to work its way through all these trapezoid punch outs around the perimeter. So that's ready to go in, and then that'll be flushed out with that tray assembly. So that's in place, and you can see how it all worked its way out. Now he goes back to that small Schluter trowel, and he's going to gauge how much thin set he's going to leave in that area with the Schluter trowel, and now he's combing the thin set right down onto the bonding flange and all the way up onto that last step of that recess that we saw around the edge that I showed you earlier. So he's getting that all filled in with thin set and gauged with the proper notch trowel, which is a Schluter trowel or roughly an 1/8 by 1/8 notch trowel in its place. So it's ready to go there. He's not putting it down into that last step, because that last step is there for the drain grate, which we're going to show you here in a couple of minutes. You want that? All right. Just keep passing stuff around. So we'll watch the skill of the craftsman as he goes about putting that in place. Into that recess, using a broad knife, a wallboard knife, a flat side of a trowel, a steel trowel, finished trowel, whatever you like that. And he's just, again, pressing, firmly embedding the Schluter into the bond coat, knocking down the ridges, and evacuating any excess air or bubbles out of there. And now we've got a watertight seal from the actual flange up onto the Schluter that's on the tray. And you can see that we've waterproofed everywhere else, haven't we? We've got our tray to wall connection done. We've got our tray to the face of the bench. We've got the bench deck to the back wall done. Inside corners, outside corners done. The niche is all watertight. All the penetrations where we put the fasteners have all been treated in this wet area. This thing's ready for tile. Matter of fact, the tile at this point is only a decorative wear surface. And if you think about it, that's all tile has ever been, right? We've always required on the system to manage the moisture in a shower. This is a sealed system. No water gets into the system. There's no need for a pan liner with weep holes and a drain assembly and all that type of thing. This is all eliminated. The integrated bonding flange was designed to accommodate surface waterproofing up at the surface, right where you're going to tile, not under your mortar bed like in a traditional pan liner assembly, right? This is a whole different way to go about things. So this here is managing the moisture at the surface. So this is a totally waterproof shower. This could be used right now. You can actually go ahead and use this thing. I wouldn't recommend for too long. It's going to be kind of hard to keep it clean and get the soap off, but we're good to go. All right, so we're in place. So the next thing to do here is put the drain grate assembly in. Here's our drain grate. This is one of our standard original Schluter drain grates. This is a stainless steel one. You can see that it's square. Tile setters understand and appreciate a square drain over a round drain as far as cutting tile around it. This is a height adjustment collar that actually snaps on to the drain grate like this. And then here's our lateral adjustment ring that fits on with friction onto that collar. you'll notice there's 2 trapezoids that are elongated and longer than the rest. Those are there because they'll line up with the screws for access into the shower, and those screws pop out the back a little bit. So if you're going to bottom this thing out, in other words, if you're going to use a really thin mosaic, you're going to want those 2 elongated trapezoids to line straight up with the screws on this system and put that in. Now, the nice thing about this system is it can accommodate any tile thickness from a tile as thick as 1.5 inches down to the thinnest mosaic and anywhere in between. So a lot of adjustability. Also, if that drain didn't get in perfectly level, you have one last chance to get the finished surface level because of the way that you can get adjustability in this actual height adjustment collar too. So keep that in mind. So I'm not going to push that all the way in yet. Aaron's going to do that when he actually tiles. Now think about that. This drain grate goes in to the shower when the shower pan is actually being tiled. The benefit of that is the shower drain grate is under the control of the tile setter, not the plumber and the mood the plumber was in the day they roughed in the plumbing, right? Which is never exactly flat and nice. That's up to you to do that as the tile setter. So you have the ability and the control to get that right. So you can see that he's placed that into that last recess that he filled with thin set, and now he's taken excess thin set and pushed it underneath that drain grate. If your tile was thicker and that drain grate isn't going to bottom all the way out, you want it to be supported when someone stands on it, so you forced a little excess thin set underneath there. Now he's used the proper notch trowel that he needs, required here, to bond the tile down. And I see this happen all the time. Tile setters always want to skimp on the size of the notch trowel they use to put in mosaic. And I know why you want to do this, because I used to do this too when I set tile. You don't want all that excess thin set coming up through your grout lines on a mosaic that you have to clean all out. That's not right, because you need 100% coverage between your tile and your bond coat. So what Aaron did is he actually used the proper notch trowel, he knocked down the ribs with the flat side of his trowel, and then he placed his mosaic in place right next to the drain, and now you don't have to clean out the grout lines, but you have 100% coverage, so keep that in mind. So the last thing he's going to do now is he's going to take that drain grate and he's going to press it down until it's flush or maybe just a skosh lower than the tile itself, and now you're in. So that's how the drain grate goes in. It goes in when you're actually tiling the pan itself. It's under the control of the tile installer, and now you're ready and you're done. So that's in essence the whole system. We showed you a lot of stuff here, of course, new products, a lot of products that have been around. We want to show you our new tray and how you can get a curbless, again, not barrier-free, although you could use these components to create a barrier-free shower. This is a curbless transition right from the bathroom floor straight into the bathroom. Very popular these days, either for a design element or because of someone needing that kind of access shower, so keep that in mind. And the last thing we want to do now on our way out is to tie in the DITRA heat mat, which is waterproof, onto the tray that was waterproof with the Curdy, with one more piece of Curdy band to bridge that seam and make that watertight. So now in case you have some water that makes outside the shower, you don't have to worry about it because you have a DITRA product that's waterproof outside the shower. And if you did all the seams on the entire floor and did a floor-to-wall connection like we showed you here around the perimeter of your bathroom, you could turn the whole bathroom floor in essence into a big shower pan. So keep that in mind, that you could actually create that and protect that OSB from ever seeing any water at all. So there you go, folks. A lot of stuff we just showed you in a short amount of time, 45 minutes. 45 minutes. How long would this take you to do in a real job site with our components and so forth? We're finding that people are prepping an entire shower in 2.5 to 3.5 hours, depending on size and different design elements that you could have in there. So think about how long it would take you to prep a shower and think about how quickly you can do it here. So there you go. Thanks very much, folks. If you want to stick around, you can, but we'll see you later. And come see us at 7919.